So in this video, I'll talk about how I built and published OpenCode Docker on GitHub and how I overcame the fear of publishing my own code on GitHub, because it can be kind of overwhelming and terrifying to put your code out there for anyone to read and judge. Is my code good enough to put on GitHub? In a public repository. And yeah, so I started building OpenCode Docker like half a year ago, like late 2025 or something. I'm not exactly sure on the date, but I started using OpenCode back in the summer of 2025, about 1 year ago. And I very quickly got very passionate about the project because I think OpenCode is an incredible tool to build anything you want. Actually, it can help anyone build anything. But of course, you have to have a set of basic skills. So I was using OpenCode for like 4 or 5 months. And then I got the idea that I wanted to put the entire Docker OpenCode CLI into a Docker container for complete isolation of the OpenCode environment. Because I noticed that when I ran OpenCode CLI, it oftentimes wanted to install programs, run system commands, etc. And I wasn't too comfortable with letting OpenCode just do anything it wanted on my machine. So that was my primary objective for building OpenCode Docker, is to isolate the OpenCode CLI from my main machine. So I, of course, used OpenCode to start building OpenCode Docker. And I did some iterations and I trashed the projects like 3 or 4 times before I got the initial project going, which is the same repository as you will find on GitHub. Link is in the description. And I've been using OpenCode Go. It's a very nice and cheap subscription model from OpenCode that lets you use lots of different models and lots of tokens. I've never even run out. So use my referral link if you want to sign up for OpenCode Go. Okay, yeah, so I started with OpenCode Go. I don't remember the exact prompts, but it was something like, I want to isolate the OpenCode CLI in a Docker environment. And it started out on a simple and plain Ubuntu Docker image running the OpenCode CLI, Node.js installed, Python installed, etc. And it worked pretty nice. And at that point, I hosted it on my local Git. It's my private Git repository server. And I was kind of afraid to publish it on GitHub because what would people think? I mean, it's just another vibe-coded tool, whatever. And, I wasn't too afraid to just put some vibe-coded stuff out there, but I felt it was more thought through than just a generic vibe-coded thing, because I know Docker very well. So for me to create something from OpenCode with Docker just made it easier for me to verify that the thing I got out in the end of OpenCode was actually good quality. So the first version was pretty decent and I got it running. And I just figured just publish it on GitHub. And I did, and not much happened. I made a video on YouTube about it and started gaining some stars on YouTube, on GitHub. And right now, as of recording this video, I think I have just under 40 stars. And a lot has happened on the project since I published opencode-docker. Because it was, as I said, it was just a very basic Ubuntu image with the opencode-docker CLI installed and Python and Node.js. And it worked. It was a very large and bloated image. But I used it for a long time, for many months, and I iterated over and over, did minor improvements every day, pushed to GitHub, made new releases. And right now, opencode-docker has come to a state where it's very nice. It runs on a distroless Docker image. And there's a build pipeline that runs the build in 3 different phases. One for building all the tools, and one for collecting all the tools and putting them into the final distroless image, which is a very minimalistic image that I've also security hardened a lot. And yeah, I use opencode-docker on a daily basis, and I'm really happy about the project I made. I started making it for myself, and I'm continuing to make it for myself. But I see that there are more and more people enjoying the project I made, and that's very nice. I don't do it for other people, I do it for myself because I really like it. I've published opencode-docker on Hacker News comments about 2 times, I think. And that was also kind of frightening, you know, put my project out there, put my name on it, and put it on Hacker News. And from both the times I've commented my project and told I was building this isolated Docker environment for OpenCode, I got like 10 more stars on my project. So that was quite nice. It was some kind of verification that it's a decent project. And the last time was a couple of weeks ago, and I wrote something like, I'm building this opencode-docker. It's a isolated Docker environment for OpenCode, and it's security hardened. And then I actually got my first criticism, which was kind of nice. I don't think he necessarily meant it as critique, but he said, if I was paranoid about security, I would never use Docker in the first place. And I think that's a very good point. And I'm not building opencode-docker purely for security. I'm building opencode-docker because I love OpenCode and I use it a lot. And I wanted to isolate and also harden the security around it. That's why we run in a distroless environment. It runs... it's not able to gain any privileges. Yeah, I don't have the tech spec right here, but there's, yeah, it's a very nice project. I'm very proud of where the project has come right now, and I hope there will be lots of development on it in the future. It probably will, because every day I go into the opencode-docker repository and I try to improve something and find new things to improve, find new things to add. Right now I'm thinking of adding the Ruby language to the image. I'm not quite sure, because I'm not sure if I'm gonna develop with Ruby. It makes more sense to develop with Python or JavaScript or something with OpenCode, because there's lots of resources around that. But I do like the Ruby language a lot. It feels really aesthetic compared to other languages. But yeah, that's not what the video is about. It's about the opencode-docker project. So I think the main things I want to express here is like, if you're afraid to put your work out there, just do it. You know, there's not a line of people waiting to judge you, even though it can feel like that sometimes. Just get your work done. Get your work out there, even if it's not done. Just make it happen. and you'll improve along the way, just like I did with opencode-docker and like I will continue to do. So it's this format is just kind of new for me. I always wanted to explore creating content this way on YouTube. So we'll see how I will continue doing this, just talking. So if you stayed all the way to the end, please subscribe and hit the like button. And leave a comment if you have any questions or suggestions on further topics I can make videos about. So I think that's about it. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.